Hello and welcome to the Unit 3 overview for Geography 102. In Unit 3, we're going to start out by looking at South Asia. And with our look at South Asia, we're going to pay particular attention to a physical geography topic known as a monsoon. A monsoon refers to a reversal of winds. And in this chapter, we're going to see how this reversal of winds is critically important for over 1 billion people in this part of the world. This regular, annual, consistent weather pattern is critically important. And while each of our chapters introduces some physical geography ideas and terms and locations, I think you're going to find that the monsoon is the most important physical geography feature that we talk about in this term. From there, we're going to look at historic empires and foreign rules. And we'll also note that this part of the world has civilizations that date back over 5,000 years in the Indus Valley. The Indus Valley is located in what is today or parts of Pakistan, Afghanistan, northwest India, areas that are home to, again, over 5,000 years of civilization and are experiencing some levels of contested space, some levels of social conflict today. We'll see how the Aryans arrive in this area about 3,500 years ago. And what was important about the Aryans is they brought the Sanskrit language. They also brought the origins of the Hindu faith and the associated social stratification with the caste system. We'll then take a quick look at the Islamic Empire that persisted for over 300 years before the British Raj. The British Raj began in 1858 and ran through 1947. So we're going to see how this impacted language and culture, long-term global connections with outsourcing. And we'll also see how South Asia was partitioned during British rule. This partitioning, the separation of Hindu and Muslims continues to be an important aspect in that area today. We'll take a look at an example of Kashmir, which is located in the northwest border of India, and we're going to see how, again, that legacy of foreign rule, particularly the partitionment created by the British Raj, continues to impact that area in a negative way. We need to address the rapid population growth that's occurring in this region. So we're going to take another look at population pyramids and the demographic transition cycle and see what's driving that growth. Today, India is the second largest country in the world in terms of population, and within the coming decades, it'll likely pass China, which implemented a one-child policy. So India will pass China in the coming decades because its population growth is slowing a little more naturally than what's happening in China. A really important part of this chapter and the related article on Rana Plaza will be outsourcing. And outsourcing is going to be part of a big theme in this unit. In Unit 3, we're going to look at globalization and how our lives are part of a global infrastructure, how we affect and are affected by globalization. So beginning with this chapter in the article on Rana Plaza, we're going to start to look at how some economic opportunities are popping up in different parts of the world and why South Asia is a magnet for growth because of low-wage labor, because of improved telecommunications and transportation associated with globalization, and because of the increasing role in multinational corporations. So outsourcing, again, is a process of moving production overseas and transferring our finished products back. And we're going to see how South Asia is a critically important producer in outsourcing, a critically important producer in our global supply chain. So the Rana Plaza article is really going to pick up on the key themes pointed out in this chapter. So in the previous unit, we looked at deindustrialization, the economic shift in North America and Western Europe away from heavy industry towards the service sector economy. And while deindustrialization means that certain parts of the world are deindustrializing, limiting, removing certain industrial practices, it doesn't mean that industry is going away. So industry is booming today in South Asia. It's booming in terms of production, manufacturing, and also the service sector. So we'll see, again, some of the pieces here to the bigger theme in Unit 3. We need a low-cost center of production, in this case Rana Plaza, to meet the mass consumption in our more affluent countries. So this chapter is going to tie together a few bigger themes like core and periphery, themes associated with production and consumption in the global supply chain. We're going to begin to reflect on our role in an increasingly globalized world. Again, this course fulfills a global perspectives university requirement. And as we wind down the course, we're really going to focus again on that concept of our world, of our role in an increasingly globalized world. The next chapter in the Finlayson text will examine East and Southeast Asia. And we'll take another look at an important physical geography concept here, and that's the Ring of Fire. The Ring of Fire will, this idea will persist into our final chapter on Oceania, but it's introduced here. So we're going to start to understand some of the physical landscapes, some of the natural disaster concerns that exist in this part of the world. We're going to look at a historical timeline of political conflict and changes. And as we look at political conflict and changes, we're going to see how communism spread through Southeast Asia and East Asia. We'll look at the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia. We'll look at the Viet Cong in Vietnam. We'll look at Mao Zedong and how he led a Marxist revolution in China in the mid-1900s. So we'll see how political conflicts and changes reflected a consistent pattern around this part of the world. As the 20th century neared its end, we saw China begin to open up more and more. They took what's called a market Leninism approach to economic development, one that is not pure capitalism or free market trade, and one that also is starting to stray from the controlled economy of a communist country. So China, over the last couple of generations, has grown what are known as special economic zones, or SEZs. These special economic zones were visited briefly in Unit 2 when we looked at the growth of metropolitan areas, when we looked at places like the Pearl River Delta. So we're going to see how a lot of the coastal cities in China are part of this SEZ, the special economic zone criteria. And we're going to see how FDI, foreign direct investment, is impacting these places. So while China, again, today remains a communist country, a relatively close country of about 1.4 billion people, we're seeing it start to open up its borders, start to open up to trade. More recently, in the last couple of years, we've seen what's known as the Sino-American Trade War, where the United States and China have been battling back and forth with tariffs, with production issues, with currency issues. So while this Sino-American trade war is persisting, we're still going to view China as a key producer in the global economy. The highlight of China's role in the global economy will be focused on in the article on Yiwu. Yiwu is a really interesting city that has expanded tremendously over the last 60 years. It is not only has the population exploded, but it's become increasingly diverse. Yiwu is a really unique place where traders from all over the world are coming and they're setting up a presence. So we're seeing more individuals from Europe. We're seeing more individuals from North Africa and Southwest Asia. We're seeing more individuals from Sub-Saharan Africa migrate to this area for trade. So again, while China is a really a communist country, a closed economy, a closed society, we're seeing how these special zones, these special areas like Yiwu are really it might look like a chaotic free-for-all at times as the free market is taking over. So we'll look at Yiwu from a growth and development standpoint, and we'll also look at Yiwu as its role in providing for mass consumption. Again, the themes in this unit are going to be globalization, global supply chain, core periphery, mass production, and mass consumption. You might find it interesting to note that Yiwu provides roughly 60% or so of Christmas decorations. So as we head into the end of the year, when we head into holiday season, maybe one of the things you want to keep an eye on if you're buying Christmas decorations or holiday decorations, where it's produced. A lot of our home decorations are increasingly produced in Yiwu as well. So if you know to keep an eye out for it, you might see Yiwu pop up a little bit more on your radar. And then our final chapter of the semester is going to look at Oceania. And Oceania is known for its physical isolation. Again, in Unit 3, we see some unique physical geography concepts. Well, the main theme here, again, is globalization, mass production, mass consumption. I think you're going to find that this part of the world is relatively unique, or at least very much different from the part of the world in which most of us live. The key physical geography topic here will be the Wallace line in biodiversity. So you're going to see different species of animals that exist in this part of the world. And in 2019, this biodiversity was under great threat through the wildfires that were spreading throughout Australia. So while wildfires are a concern anywhere, we're going to see how the climate and the unique biodiversity brought heightened attention to the issue in Australia. When we look outside of Australia, we're going to see our different regional island classifications. So while Oceania is dominated by Australia and New Zealand, we're going to see that this is a very diverse place. This is a place of different interests. When I say interests, I mean controlling interests from other countries. We're going to see that it's an area of great diversity, very unique cultures. So the regional classifications will just help us categorize where these different islands are located and some of the key features. We'll take a look at the Aboriginal groups, the indigenous groups in this part of the world, the Maoris in New Zealand and the Aborigines in Australia, and we'll see how these groups have a unique culture and also some cultural concerns as these once majority groups are now minorities in these countries, and some of the social and cultural concerns that we see. And some of these social and cultural concerns are also consistent with what we find in places like the United States with some of our minority groups. And we are going to wrap up the semester with just 3 chapters in Unit 3. But again, as you go through, the keys that I want everyone to focus on is globalization, mass production, mass consumption, and your role. There's going to be a lot of reflection in this unit through our reaction essay and through the final field report. So as you go through, think about yourself as a global citizen. Think about your role. Think critically, right? What are the pros and cons of your role and your experiences and your actions in the global economy? What are the positives and negatives elsewhere? Oftentimes we get this dichotomous view of if another country produces for us and we must be exploiting them, or if it's just all an economic benefit if we send industry over there. I want you to think about this critically. There are pros and cons to this global establishment. There are financial positives and negatives. There are social positives and negatives in different parts of the world. So I do want you to think about this critically. Examine both sides of the issue and also your role in this increasingly globalized world. So if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I look forward to reading your papers, and I will be in touch soon.